Well, it's official. I am back home from California, and it has rained recently here in Georgia. Today, I am flipping my Monarch. This thing has gone through a number of iterations. Right now, you can see the handle gap is, well, almost non-existent, and that is a problem I've been working on and fighting and trying to fix with Julian for quite a while now, unfortunately. But I have my original blade again. So the story behind this thing is that I got it at Blade Show 2019. And then, oh, a snail, look. Can you see the snail? Hello, friend. How are you today? I got it at Blade Show 2019. And then, you know, I really, really, really loved it, and I still do really love it, but the handle gap did relatively rapidly disappear, which is sad. You can actually hear the clap, like, that's the handles smacking together. They just, yeah, not the greatest. But yeah, so they essentially, this part back here, the blade dug into, and you can actually kind of see the crevasse it made. And I believe that has to do with the fact that this is a bearing Monarch and not a bushing Monarch. So when he fixed it for me, because he fixed it for me, I sent it to him and he replaced my blade with a bushing blade. So he essentially upgraded it to bushings. And that was very cool of him and very nice, but at the same time, it kind of lost a part of its charm to me because for some reason, the bearings make it feel very different. And I have a theory for why. You see, in bushing balisongs, bushings are on a similar level to washers. And there's a thing called shear force. And shear force is the force between two surfaces as they shear against one another. It's essentially just the friction between two surfaces. The shear force required to cause two washers to slide together is constant the entire time. So as they're sliding, they have a continuous amount of friction that they are both experiencing as they slide together. The same thing applies to bushings. It's just because of the structure of the bushing, you get less shear force against the blade, and so the blade can swing very freely. But the bushings themselves are experiencing a constant amount of friction the entire time. So that's why bushings feel very consistent while you're flipping. Bearings, on the other hand, experience shear force very differently because they are balls that are rolling. They experience friction in a way of where there's a substantial amount of friction right at the beginning, and then as they get rolling, the friction coefficient drops off dramatically. And so basically when they're still, the friction is infinite because nothing is happening. But then as soon as you start to move, they start to roll. And as soon as they start to roll, they get momentum. And when that momentum increases and they roll faster, they experience less friction overall. And so what you have is a faster feeling knife because as the handle starts to move, there's no, the friction coefficient drops, and so there's no resistance in terms of, it's stopping or anything like that. So that's why bearing knives overall feel a lot faster, but I don't want to say downside or upside, but a consequence of this, I think is the right word, is that bearing knives generally feel lighter than their bushing and washer counterparts. So just by adding bearings to a knife, it might feel as though it is lighter generally just because of it being actually faster. And so what I found is once I was upgraded to bushings, I didn't like it as much. I was kind of disappointed. First of all, I was disappointed because the blade that I was given was number 43 or 46 or something, and it was not, as you can see on this one, number 69, which is unimaginably, I can't describe to you how important it is that I own number 69. It's unimaginably important. So I was disappointed about that. But at the same time, I was also disappointed that it felt so different. it genuinely felt extremely different to flip. And I don't know, I wasn't as much of a fan as I was when I, you know, went up to Blade Show in 2019 and touched the one that had, you know, bearings in it and was like, damn, this thing flips great. It's already a little bit loose too because I haven't applied any Loctite whatsoever. Which one of these is T10? Boop. But like, yeah, I don't know, I was really disappointed and I wanted that feeling back. And so I talked to Julian to see if we can't figure out how to make the handles and stuff let there be less, you know, of a slappy boy. And we tried a few different things, and nothing has really worked thus far. The one thing we did try most recently was adding metallic epoxy, which we knew would probably not work great because epoxy of any kind is substantially softer than steel. Though my hope was that because it was softer, maybe when the steel came in and hit it, you know, instead of being a massive smack, it would, because it's softer, it would have a plastic deformation that would allow it to kind of like absorb the impact and then spring back slightly, you know, and maybe that would keep the handle gap open for longer because of its ability to deform and then spring back. Turns out, ability to deform, not great. Actually, it just deformed and then stayed that way, so that was a problem. And so I got this and started flipping it basically less than a day ago when I arrived back at the house. And immediately, well, the handle gap was like here, honestly. Like, it was a wide boy. It was like there. And, well, you can see that it's already back to a slappy boy. It is touching again. So, that sucks. But I do have an idea. The idea of using metallic epoxy did kind of give me a brain blast, and the thing that I blasted out of my brain was, what if, and this could work either here on the blade itself or inside of the crevasse, and I'm probably going to try the crevasse first before I try the blade, but what if I use a hardened steel shim, right? So either like a piece of a hardened steel washer, or I take like some cold rolled spring steel, you know, just 0.01 inches thick, very, very thin. And I apply a tiny bit of metallic epoxy to there, and then I apply the spring steel on top of that, right? And then put a lot of clamping force, let that set, whatever. Will it, you know, because obviously the metallic epoxy was too soft, but if there is a piece of spring steel here, and that is what's connecting with the blade, will the epoxy be able to bond it to the titanium underneath and survive impacts? Because then the epoxy itself will be a very thin layer. All it has to do is, you know, connect the two areas. Whereas the spring steel, you know, that won't be nearly as big of an issue. So I am hopeful that that might actually provide a really good solution. I might have to shave out a bit of the titanium here just to make room for the steel, and then I can add the steel in, and, you know, we'll see if that fixes the handle gap issue for at least a slightly longer period of time than one day. But hey, this thing, I still really like it as a flipper, and I am very disappointed that, like, it got like this. But I do really genuinely still love flipping it. And from what I've seen, people that have the bushing version, they don't have this issue at all in terms of the handle gap closing like mine did. And I believe that's just because the bearings, as I said, the force is almost exponential. And so when it connects here, when it like flies and then it lands, with the bushings, there's a consistent amount of friction the entire time, and so when it connects, it's a lot less intense. Whereas this one, because there is not a linear amount of friction, because the friction almost evaporates by the time it connects, it hits a lot harder, and I think that's what's caused this problem. So, yeah, there's a substantial number of issues that have changed that I think I'm kind of sad to see happen. Also, look, there's a worm. Where are you going, little buddy? You need to go to the mud. Come here. Oh gosh, he's angry. Come here. No, 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 no. It's okay. It's okay. Oh, he's an angry earthworm. I think there's a bus here. Come on, buddy. You need to go to the mud. You're going to die out here. It's going to dry out. Yeah, there we go. Doo-doo-doo-doo. No, no, no. You have to let go now. There you go. Goodbye, earthworm. And there's a little isopod. All right. But yeah, that is my experience with the Monarch. It's still a work in progress, kind of figuring out, you know, how to fix this issue. I've been working with Julian. I've just been talking to him, and we've been kind of brainstorming different ideas and stuff. And, you know, like at this point, I'm kind of like, yeah, it's just going to be like that forever, and that's okay. And while that's disappointing, at the same time, I'm also just kind of over it. And so I'm down to experiment and figure out stuff that we could do to maybe improve that. My last resort, by the way, this is my idea for my very last resort for fixing this thing. I want to take a drill press and go through the handle and give it Zen pins, essentially. I want to... My last resort is drill pressing through the handle and giving my freaking Monarch press fit Zen pins, because, I mean, like, you know, that just seems like that might just be the thing to do at the end of the day. Like, if I can't fix it with without adding Zen pins, I think strategically finding the exact space, which would be like that corner in there, so right around there on the handle, because it'd have to be far enough in that it doesn't deform the titanium in that direction, because if the wall is too thin, it just wouldn't work. And then it needed to be, I don't know, there's a way to do it. So I might, by the end of the day, end up having the very first Zen pin Monarch, which would be very fucking funny. But as you can see, even over the course of this video, it went from having a little bit of handle gap to having literally none. Now it literally is just a slappy boy. So very sad day for Monarch. Thankfully his newer stuff is better with the bushings, but if you have a bearing Monarch, just be wary. The more you flip it, the more likely this will happen. So, all right. Well, I hope you guys have a good day. I know I am gonna have a fun time experimenting with this and hopefully making it better. I'm also editing the Marin review right now, so I'm gonna go back upstairs and start editing that review. So I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.